Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining this training on trauma-informed pedagogy, TIP for volunteers. My name is Nikki. I have a master's degree in mental health counseling from Penn State. I'm a huge advocate for trauma-informed care, and I believe the same principles can also apply to our teaching role. It's about how trauma affects learning and how we can create a safe, empathetic, and responsive learning environment for all students. So let's jump right in. So first, let's define trauma. Trauma is an emotional and physical response to distressing experiences or repeated exposure to such experiences. You can see from the picture, these experiences can include natural disasters, severe injuries, car accidents, or some small events like moving to a new location can also cause distress for individuals. These experiences can deeply impact a learner's ability to focus, attend, participate, take risks in learning. Trauma-informed pedagogy means teaching with an awareness of these impacts and prioritizing safety, trust, and dignity to support our learners' resilience and growth. By the end, you will have practical strategies to apply TIP strategies to your volunteer work. The trauma is a complex experience that includes three key aspects: exposure, experience, and lasting effects. When we say trauma include exposure, it means that the person has been subjected to a distressing or harmful event or series of events. These events could be a one-time occurrence, like an accident or natural disaster, or ongoing situations such as chronic abuse or neglect. Experiences is how the person personally processes and reacts to these distressing events. Trauma is not just about what happened objectively, it's about how those experiences are felt emotionally, physically, and mentally by the individual. Two people may experience the same event but react and be impacted very differently. Trauma can leave long-term impacts on someone's brain development, emotional regulation, relationships, and learning abilities. This effect can persist well beyond the original event and influence many areas of life. Research and experience tell us that trauma is common. Many learners in our classrooms have trauma histories, even if those histories are not obvious. This means that the trauma-informed pedagogy is essential because it helps us recognize and respond to the needs of a significant portion of our learners. Trauma can impact important aspects of learning and participation. It can interrupt a learner's ability to focus during lessons or attendance over time. It may reduce participation because trauma often makes social interactions feel risky or unsafe. Trauma can also affect the risk taking in learning. It might take many learners more resistant to try new or challenging tasks for the fear of failure or rejection. Trauma can also deeply affect trust. Learners who have experienced trauma may find it difficult to trust educators, classmates, or even the learning environment itself. So, in order to facilitate learning, reflect on your own. Think about your own experiences with learners or students. How might trauma show up in their learning? And what behaviors or challenges could be signs of a trauma response? So, by understanding these ways how trauma influence learning, we position ourselves to create an environment where learners feel safe, supported, and ready to engage. This awareness is central to trauma-informed pedagogy and helps us shift from reacting to behavior towards proactively supporting healing and growth. So, in addition to, there's a lot of effects on trauma, such as physical development, emotional development. And the most important thing we're going to discuss here is trauma on learning. So trauma can profoundly affect emotion and cognitive development. Many learners who have experienced trauma struggle with regulating their emotions. They may have trouble controlling anger, frustration, or feelings of overwhelm. Furthermore, trauma can impair their ability to understand social cues, which make it harder to build relationship and trust with peers and adults. These learners often experience excessive worry or anxiety that affects their overall well-being. On the learning side, trauma can cause difficulty with problem solving, delaying their ability to approach challenges effectively. Language development may be delayed or impaired, which limits their ability to express themselves and understand others. Maintaining attention becomes a challenge. As trauma reduces working memory capacity, executive function, which includes planning, organizing, and cognitive flexibility, making it harder for learners to manage complex tasks or adapt to change. These challenges illustrate why trauma-informed pedagogy is important. By understanding those barriers, we can better design learning environments that support emotional regulation and cognitive engagement and help our learner build resilience. So TIP for volunteers, we're going to talk about what TIP is and what it is not, and why it matters. And we're going to introduce some core principles: safety, trustworthiness, support, collaboration, voice and choice, social justice, resilience, and growth. And we're going to share some TIP strategies as well. So TIP is an educational approach that softly applies trauma-informed principles to the practice of teaching and learning. This approach recognizes that many learners come to educational settings carrying experiences of trauma that deeply affect how they engage with learning, their peers, and educators. At its core, this pedagogy creates learning environment that actively recognize the impact of trauma on a learner's emotional, cognitive, and social functioning. It means seeing beyond behaviors and academic performance to understand the underlying trauma that might be influence those outcomes. Trauma-informed pedagogy prioritizes those key elements. Safety. This includes physical safety, but quite importantly, our emotional, social, and academic safety. Learners need to feel safe to express themselves, take risks, make mistakes, and learn without fear of judgment or harm. When learners feel safe, their brains are more able to focus and engage deeply with the material. The second one is trust. Trustworthiness is foundational. This means educators and learning environment establish clear expectations, are constant and transparent in their actions, and maintain appropriate boundaries. Trust helps learners feel secure and respected, and support their willingness to participate and take intellectual risks. And dignity and support. So every learner's dignity is respected by valuing their experiences and individuality. The environment provides nurturing support that promotes learners' resilience, their ability to adapt and recover from adversity, and encourage ongoing growth. So this support empowers learners to build confidence and succeed academically and personally despite the past trauma. So what TIP is not? It is simply not therapeutic in a clinical sense, nor does it require knowing anything about the individual students' experiences. Trauma-informed pedagogy is an approach to teaching, not a type of therapy or clinical treatment. Educators are not expected to diagnose or treat trauma, not to uncover personal trauma histories of the student. Instead, the focus is on creating supportive environments that acknowledge trauma's possible presence without needing detailed personal information. It does not teach students about trauma. While trauma might be part of some course content, trauma-informed pedagogy itself is not about instructing students on trauma or making trauma the subject of education. Rather, it is about adjusting teaching methods, classroom climate, and interactions in ways that recognize and accommodate the effects trauma may have on learners. The goal is to provide a safe and a supportive setting that enhances engagement and learning for everyone, irrespective of their trauma histories. It does not require instructors to take on more or to go outside of their role. Implementing TIP does not mean that you have to become counselors or social workers. It does not call for additional responsibilities beyond teaching. Instead, it encourages educators to integrate trauma-aware practices within their existing roles, fostering safety, trust, and collaboration, while referring students to appropriate professional support when needed. It promotes clear role boundaries so you can focus on teaching while still being responsive to student needs. It is not in conflict with rigor, high expectations, or academic standards. Some may worry that being trauma informed means that lowering expectations or reducing academic rigor to accommodate learners who have experienced trauma. On the contrary, trauma informed pedagogy supports maintaining high standards while creating conditions that help all students meet those expectations. It emphasizes understanding barriers to learning so that real access to opportunities is possible. Holding high expectations alongside empathetic support leads to stronger, more equitable educational outcomes. So, why TIP matters? So, students have experienced trauma events. Many students enter classroom carrying the weight of difficult and traumatic experiences, ranging from abuse, neglect, loss, community violence, or chronic stress. These experiences are more common than many realize. A study shows that a majority of individuals will face at least one traumatic event in their lifetime. And these experiences deeply affect how students feel, think, and behave. And we need to acknowledge that. So, learning is unlikely to occur when someone is having a trauma response. When students are in trauma response, meaning their brain perceives danger and activate survival mechanism like fight, flight, freeze, or shut down, it becomes nearly impossible for them to focus on learning. Trauma affects brain areas responsible for attention, memory, and problem solving. So during those moments, students struggle to absorb new information or regulate their emotions and behavior. In this state, traditional teaching methods often fall short. The third is TIP can create an environment that allows for better self-regulation. TIP works by intentionally designing learning spaces that provide safety, predictability, and supportive relationships. When students feel physically and emotionally safe, their nervous system can calm and they can better manage their feelings and impulses. TIP teaches educators to recognize trauma triggers and respond with compassion. Over time, the supportive environment helps students develop strong skills for self regulation, which are crucial for success, not only in academics, but also in life. So the students are more likely to engage positively with their education. So we focus on several core principles that guide TIP approaches. Safety, creating physical and emotional space where learners feel secure and safe. Trustworthiness, being consistent, clear, and reliable in communication and expectations. Support, providing help and intervention that help build on learning's existing strengths. Collaboration, encouraging teamwork and shared decision making to reduce isolation. Voices and choice, empowering learners by giving them agency in their learning processes. Social justice, recognizing system inequalities and fostering fairness and inclusion. Resilience and growth, supporting learners' capacity to recover and strive despite such challenges. Each principle helps us understand the needs of learners and build responsive pedagogical strategies. And you can click on the PDF file to learn more details about those principles. So let's come to the TIP strategies. These principles emphasize the critical importance of creating an environment where students feel safe. For learners impacted by trauma, safety is often compromised. So establishing consistent rituals, routines, and predictable classroom structure is key. Some examples would include start class with familiar activities, like, a quote of the day or a clear agenda. Such predictabilities foster trust. Tutors should avoid exposing students to unnecessary risks, such as cold calling learners unexpectedly or embarrassing correction methods. Instead, approaches like non-public corrections can build safety and trust. Personalized attention also helps, from greeting students by their name to activities that encourage sharing stories in safe ways. This practice fosters relationship building by acknowledging learners as whole persons, not just academic performance. Providing opportunities for students to share parts of their experience or perspectives helps build community and supports emotional processing. For example, storytelling and writing activities integrated with language learning allow students to express themselves, connect with others, and acknowledge trauma in a supportive setting. Trauma often leaves individuals feeling helpless and powerless. So providing students with choice and a sense of control is deeply healing and helps build confidence. Small choices can be integrated into everyday learning, such as allowing students to select their learning materials, ask them what they want their learning focus to be, or choose topics for discussion. Co-creating learning materials helps students draw on their strengths and feel competent. So these practices, students move from passive to active agency. It is vital for overcoming trauma's effects. Empowerment also includes respecting diverse learning styles, allow students to express themselves in ways that resonate best for them, thereby supporting emotional and cognitive regulation. So, trauma can also isolate learners, making connection to others difficult. Trauma-informed pedagogy seeks to foster collaborative learning environments where students work together and feel connected to peers and educators. Collaborative content creation brings students into their supportive relationship dynamics that encourage mutual help and shared responsibilities. It's including community voices, enriches learning and connection. Tutors can foster connection by co-creating class norms and seeking student feedback on learning experiences. One-on-one listening and linking students to professional resources showing respect and responsiveness to individual needs. Ultimately, our role is not to fix trauma, but to provide safe, empowering, and collaborative space where learners can build resilience, both academically and personally. So, some key messages. TIP is not about being a therapist or lowering standards. TIP is not designed to turn volunteers into therapists. It does not require diagnosing or treating trauma in students. Instead, it focuses on understanding how trauma might affect learners and adjusting teaching practices accordingly to support them. TIP also does not mean lowering academic or behavioral expectations. Maintaining rigor and high standards remains essential. TIP helps create conditions where all learners, including those affected by trauma, can meet those standards effectively. TIP means recognizing students' reality. A core aspect of TIP is acknowledging that many students have experienced trauma that shapes how they learn and behave. Rather than asking, "What is wrong with you?" TIP encourages us to ask, "What has happened to you?" Recognizing these realities means seeing student actions and challenges as understandable responses to their life experiences, not as deficits. This perspective invites empathy and supports creative learning environments that respond thoughtfully to individual needs. So, as volunteers, we model empathy, flexibilities, and respect to foster successful learning. In TIP, we lead by examples through demonstrate empathy, genuine understanding, and caring about student experiences. Flexibility in approach allows adapting activities, expectations, or interactions to meet learners where they're emotionally and cognitively. Maintaining respect for each student's dignity fosters trust and safety, which is foundational for learning. So by modeling those qualities, we help build positive relationships that encourage engagement and academic success in learners. As volunteer, you play a vital role in modeling those behaviors and shaping environments where all learners can feel valued and succeed. Thank you for committing your time and care to this important work. Mm.